Well, welcome everyone to Monday Night Magic, our November 2022 version. And we're delighted that you guys can join us here tonight. Ken and I are super excited about sharing with you all the amazing ways we can biohack our lives, our hearts, our emotions, our ancestral patterns, and all that genetic coding that we carry that's been passed on to us generationally. And in turn, how we can actually enjoy a better holiday season. You have it in your control and in your power to make these the best holidays you've ever had. And coming off of several years of COVID and all that nonsense, let's really enjoy it. Let's just embrace this and make it the best holiday season ever.
I agree. I'm in. I'm coming to your party.
I am having one on New Year's. I just got talked into it. So
right on. Well, some of the things that we were talking about in the green room, which was like just a little bit, but was again, how that ancestral stuff shows up and how it winds up possibly or potentially being a manifestation of our future, and how we can hack that or how we can bypass that. Again, setting intentions and being very clear upon an outcome that we really want. And I wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into what that means at the genetic level, literally within the DNA code and what it receives from that intention.
And I want to help you guys use creative homeopathy, or if you have the coaching module, actually how to use that, how to really set an intention. You've got, a week and a half to go before Thanksgiving. And I want to show you how you can set an intention, and that we will find the difference. If you could really, when I'm working with my clients and I'm creating these intentions, I want it to be as if they don't remember anything other than perfection. Because then what happens is when we drop out of our heads and into our hearts at that level, we literally will find what's in between where we are and that next timeline. And the healing will go in and scan all those subconscious programs, all those ancestral programs, all that coding, if you will, that we carry. And it'll clear it. And clear it and clear it. And you can walk into your Thanksgiving gathering, not only have cleared yourself, but I just found this out from Ken today. I used to say it goes back and forth 7 generations, but apparently I was wrong. It's 14 generations. So think about that. Think about how much healing you can do just by having a pure heart and setting that amazing intention for yourself.
I love that. So let's think about that, how that works. Like what Lori's talking about is doing this within the coaching module or in some of the other homeopathic remedies. And what's Healy actually doing for you? Let me just paint a picture real quick. I want to paint a picture around lifespan. Okay, I know oh my gosh, we really going to talk about lifespan. So one of the things that's important to understand is energy around us, not just within our small space of where we live or the proximity of our body, but the energy around us. And as Lori mentioned, dating back or going back 14 generations now, there is energy within the DNA code that propagates forward. Now, the energy within the DNA code can also be hacked. It can be adjusted. It could be, I don't know, I don't like this word, but we can manipulate it, I guess you might say. We can actually create an outcome that we desire as opposed to one that we do not. But how many times, I'm going to ask you guys this, just don't answer. You don't have to type it in, but just inside your mind, think about how many of you have ever, well, probably not anybody here, but how many has ever thought of worst case scenario? Anybody? Probably none of you guys, I know. But sometimes we worry and we think about worst case scenario, right? Now, that has energy to it, folks. It has a very powerful energy to it. And the moment we decide to prepare for worst case scenario, guess what happens? The body has to legitimately create an outcome, a physical three-dimensional realm or creation that will allow for worst case scenario. So this is done at the genetic code. And you've heard me say it before, to the tune of 800,000 cells per second, right? The body has to prepare for its future. And when we are thinking in our mind, worst case scenario for the future, then the body's going to be preparing for that. Okay. Genetically, epigenetically. Again, what we know, what that means is outside the genetic code, outside the cell, we're creating information so that the body's prepared to live in its environment. And I'm going to just talk in terms of that life expectancy. I want to tell you the CDC, they released for immediate release in August 31st, 2022. According to the CDC, life expectancy in the US dropped for the second year in a row in 2020 and 2021. Why? Right now, this is the biggest decline since the 1921 and 1923 decline in life expectancy. And this was in 2020, this was a drop of 0.9 years in one's life expectancy. That's almost a year, right? In 2021, a drop of 1.8 years in life expectancy, 2021. Now, why do you think that is? Lori and I were talking about this, right, Lori?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the obvious is COVID, but not just how many people died because they contracted COVID, but how many people committed suicide because they couldn't stand the loneliness of these lockdowns, and the toll that it took on them emotionally was more than they could handle. Suicide deaths are up dramatically in the last couple of years.
Now, I don't want that to scare you guys, because this information is just information. It's not designed to scare you. It's just to give you statistics and data and look at things. What I like to do is go to 10,000 feet and look at the landscape of things. And when we see these kind of results, the landscape of things is saying something else was also going on. Of course, that there's things that are happening within people that are already having challenges within their health. But another thing happened. What kept everybody inside? What kept everybody glued to the television, glued to the news?
Fear.
And I'm going to tell you, the lowest frequency of emotion is fear. And when you send that signal out from your body, we send information in the form of magnetic waves out of the body up to 10 feet, just within the three-dimensional space. That has nothing to do with quantum entanglement. In other words, the people we know, the things we associate with, the places we go, those are quantum entangled that have infinite range. But just our bodies sending out signals magnetically within the field of them is 10 feet. So if you've got a group of folks, say a family at a gathering, we're talking about the holidays coming up, right? You've got a group of people, a family that maybe tends to have negative emotions. Maybe it's all fear-driven. These fear-based frequencies or jealous-based, whatever the emotion is that's the same within a family structure, it will gain amplitude. Okay, so one person is having a conversation with another family member, and that conversation has to do with some kind of anger, and the other person gets on board with being angry. Now emotions are starting to drive each other, and then they start to emanate out because they get stronger between the two humans that are having this coherent signal. Now they get bigger and bigger, and the other family members get on board, and then all of a sudden it's World War family, whatever is going on, right? So as Lori said, creating an intention, though, starts to build your own field. And it can outweigh, the stronger your intention, the better it will outweigh someone else's that's a little less powerful. So these statistics I share with you, and I want to talk about a little bit about proximity, because in 2020, the men's life expectancy was about 75 years in the US, about 75 years, women, 80 years. But in Europe, men was 77 years and women 83 years old. Now that's just US versus Europe. There's reasons for that. There's reasons for that. The lowest country in the world was a country in South Africa called Lesotho, where men average life expectancy 50 years old, women 56. 56. Now, this is environment, folks. I want you to understand how environment has an influence over genetic coding, has an influence because it's energy, right? If you live in fear, what do you think those folks feel like in South Africa? How do you think they feel? It's really shifting. It's not because their body is less capable than ours or that ours are less capable than the Europeans. That's not it. There's nothing to do with it. So what's going on here? It has to do with signaling outside of the genetic code, as we're speaking, epigenetics, right? So back to Lori's point around setting an intention. Now, I want to, there's this quote I hear often, and I love this quote because it's about lifespan. So I'm kind of talking about that, but a long lifespan is not the same as a long health span, right? Right. One can live a long life, but not be healthy. So that's what we're talking about here, raising our energy, finding a healthy lifespan. All right. Want to expand on that, Lori?
Well, think about all the fear that's gone on. That's what's it. When people are in fear, they're radiating fear. That fear is going out, touching everyone else, impacting everyone else. I mean, have you ever walked into a room and there was a lot of anxiety and stress going on, and all of a sudden you started to feel it? Have you ever been with someone and all of a sudden you started feeling really awful? Because you're
I'm in a Zoom call. Yeah.
Because you're taking on their stuff.
Well,
there, sorry. Which one is it that's unmuted?
That was Toby.
Yeah, I got it. So I guess I just really would encourage you to understand that it's not, if you all of a sudden, if you walk into a room and you're feeling right, and all of a sudden you start feeling bad, it's not because something's going on in your neurotransmitters or something crazy like that. It's that you're actually taking on other people's stuff. And you can do that. A lot of people in this that are on this Zoom tonight, I'm going to guess, are empaths. And the challenge with empaths is that you automatically take on other people's stuff and you want to fix it. OMG, not a good idea. Do you know why? It's not a good idea because if you fix it for them, and that situation was here to teach them a lesson, now the universe has to come up with some other nonsensical thing to teach them that lesson, and it could be worse. So processing other people's emotions for them is a really bad idea, a really bad idea. And I understand this so well because as a coach, when I first started coaching, oh my goodness, I was taking people's stuff on constantly. I actually was blessed to have a shaman who made me a medicine bag that I had to wear near my solar plexus so that I would stay present in my own energy field and not take on other people's stuff. And in doing that, that taught me to create those healthy boundaries.
And this is what I'm talking about where it comes to environment. Remember what I was saying about environment, you know, the US versus Europe or even Lesotho. Environment has a big part to play. So even when, like Lori's coaching people, the outside environment, the energetic expression or the energetic field, these are magnetic waves, everyone. Trillions and trillions and trillions of magnetic waves we're being exposed to every second. Now, this is thought form as well. Thought form from others. Consciousness from a larger, grander perspective, in addition to light, the sun, 5G, whatever you want to focus on, it will expand. And so the moment that we take on someone else's energy and we focus on it, where we place our attention is where we place our energy, we are creating an amplitude, or I should say a coherent wave that amplifies the signal. So when it comes to understanding this lifespan that these bodies have, there was a research published in a publication called Nature Communications. It was published in May of 2021. Leads to evidence that human bodies can live to 120 to 150 years old. So why is life expectancy 75 years old for men, 80 years old for women in the US? And in Lesotho, it's only 50 and 56. Why? If research shows that these bodies that we're all hanging out in right now can be 120 to 150, that means I'm like middle age. Woo! I love it, right? I'm in. So what is the issue that we are being lessened by? And I want to put the empowerment back into your hands, because this is the powerful thing that we really, really need to stay attentive to. And it is what I alluded to before, fear. Brittany just put a comment in the fear and stress. So these things are legit, folks. And we hear it all the time. Stress is a killer, and stress is that, stress is the other. But let me paint a better picture for you. So within this study, they were looking for natural incremental decline markers. Natural incremental decline markers. Now, they used one of the markers was blood cell count, but guess what the other one was? And they wanted to make sure they were very, very different so they could measure in very different ways. Blood cell count was one, step count was the other. Step count. In other words, you can't cheat how many steps per day you take, right? So let's just say that one over time tends to be more sedentary. Okay. In other words, as you're 30 years old, you're probably pretty active getting around, 40 similar, 50 kind of, 60 maybe not so much, 70 even less. So let's just think about that for a moment. Step count is just as big a factor in one's what we're going to call natural incremental decline as blood cell count. All right. So one is biological. The other is choice. It's your choice. And so we can actually increase our longevity by some simple things such as taking a walk. Now, this incremental decline concept, it took out all of the things that naturally kill us, such as cancer and heart disease and getting hit by a bus. Those kind of things, that was taken out of the equation and just looked at blood cell count and step count, right? In terms of, and determined that a human body could live 120 to 150 years old. All right. Now there's some other things that can naturally take us out, such as cancer, but where's that come from? Where's cancer come from? Again, back to some of the energy that we're putting into worry, concern, disharmony, right? And we can almost tell where or what kind of disharmony is happening by where the cancer has shown up within the body, right? What's the number one cancer within women? Breast cancer, and within men, prostate. The lack of love within the heart center really lowers the energy within that area, leading into disharmony and disease. Same thing with men. Fear, stress, survival, prostate, first center, right? So we can look at some of the things that are happening within the body, and almost we can tell, because of the energy center that's being attacked, what kind of emotional baggage or what kind of emotional influence is going on there. So what do we do about it? what do we do about these things? How do we change things? Well, of course, being active is just as important as the healthy blood. But what else can we do? How can we shift some of the energies that are influencing, or I should say, plaguing our genetic codes, right?
Absolutely. You know, I'm going to put this in the chat. It's a website out of New Zealand. It's called alternativecancercare.com.
Mm-hmm.
They list, I believe it's the top 40 cancers and the emotional root cause behind each of them. And breast cancer, there's actually 4 different types that they list. And I will tell you that when I stumbled upon this website was about maybe 15 years ago, when a dear friend of mine had glioblastoma. And I was trying to do everything I could to help him from a holistic perspective. And he was losing cognitive functioning because that's a brain cancer. So I wasn't really able to work with him on the emotions that we needed to work on. So I found this website, and they also have a CD on that website that is meditations that help cancer patients to release some of these negative emotions. But what was most fascinating about it was that my mother had died of breast cancer when she was only 49. And intrinsically, I knew, I always would say to her, Mom, you got to change your attitude. You got to change the way you think. Because if you think you're going to die, you're going to die. And if you think you're not, you're not. And you got to get more positive. And I was talking epigenetics, and I was only like, you know, in my early 20s. So, but when I found this website, and my mom had cancer of the left breast, and cancer of the left breast had to do with, it had to do with a conflict with the mother. And the emotional trigger often happens about 18 months prior to the onset. Well, about 18 months prior to the onset of the left breast cancer, my mother found out that she was born. Her parents got married 6 weeks before she was born. So she was almost illegitimate. Now, back then, that was a big deal. And my mom was so upset because her whole life she had felt like her parents loved her brother more than her. And now she felt like she was spot on accurate. So she took a deep dive into that mess of emotion, that she wasn't loved, that she wasn't wanted, and was very upset with her mother for never having explained this to her. Now, I can't say for sure that's why my mom contracted breast cancer, but the facts are there. It was spot on accurate. And that's what really got me headed down the whole rabbit hole of epigenetics, and knowing the absolute positive importance of getting in there and doing your emotional healing work. And, you know, I don't care what it is. We're all going to get stuff that's going to be tough, that's going to be hard, that's going to be like, how can I possibly rise above this? I know it happened to me a couple of years ago, and I was talking with a girlfriend last night, and she said for her, it was cancer. She had gotten uterine cancer. And, you know, because we both really understand the law of attraction, we both understand epigenetics, we both understand the importance of creating our own realities. What do you do in the face of all that and still stay positive? You pull out all your tools. And the biggest tool that we all have right now is right here. I mean, yes, exercising super important, diet super important, but when it comes to getting in there and finding that emotional baggage, you have a tool. And Healy works on the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels simultaneously. So no matter what program you're running, it's clearing that stuff. But then when you go into creative homeopathy, or the Bach flowers, or the bush flowers, or the gem elixirs, and the I Ching, and you find the stuff that's in the subconscious that's creating this angst and anxiety, it's mind blowing. And then of course, when you go into the coaching module, I biohacked the heck out of a horrible situation that I was involved in. I had 3 different programs running every day, and I ran those programs for months and months and months until the situation dissipated and things were better. And I said, thank God for the healing. Thank God for the healing. So it's an amazing device. Use it.
And this is, as Lori has said before too, and mentioned earlier in the conversation, that even these things that show up in our 3-dimensional world that look like our life have ties to 14 generations behind us. There's certain things that we just have maybe a certain fear or a phobia or strong feelings about this or that. And we just say, well, that's just who I am, right? That's just who I am. However, science now shows, well, we can look back 14 generations and know that your genetic coding is being influenced by the energy of that. And then as well as your own current thoughts, state of environment, things around us. And I really want to hit this home for a moment, because it's not necessarily because of what's in your family. Like, we're going to get together with our family over the holidays. Yes, as we were talking about here. And so you look around at your brothers and your sisters and your aunts and your uncles and the people, and you go, man, you know, that's why I got this, and that's why this is going on. It's not necessarily in that immediate family, because it's in the DNA. It's in our DNA. And what signals this DNA, what turns it on, is energy, magnetic influence. And so this is the power that Healy has, because it's working with the information field. When you vibrate content into the field, you're sending magnetic energy, you're sending waves of information, and those waves of information are now, they're influencing your genetic code. Now, not just yours, by the way, not just yours. We get a million Healys out there, right? A million families are starting to use Healys, and there's not a single signal that Healy will send out that is disharmony with the human race. Not one. So I don't care what program you're running. Thank you. I'm going to say thank you, because it's influencing my genetic code, the magnetic energy that's influencing my code by all these Healys being put out there. They're literally wireless, like wireless Wi-Fi information going out in the field. And the DNA is receiving these signals. It's information within the field. And when we run a scan, whether it be from the aura, the resonance, or the coaching module, it's going to look at you from an objective observer. There's no opinion there, right? There's no ego there. There's no judgment. There's no belief structure. It's simply an objective observer looking at what best aligns you. And what's that statement? With what do I have the greatest resonance now within the resonance scan? What's that say? It's asking a question. And the better you get at asking questions of the universe, the better you get the answers that are proper, right? Because what happens most of the time, I mean, I know none of you folks here, but when people pray, they're praying for, please give me this, or please give me that, and get me over this and get me over that. That's not really a prayer. That's begging. That's something that's really begging. And when we simply, a prayer, an honest prayer, by the way, and this is my opinion, is asking, is talking about a feeling. Thank you for this feeling of abundance. I am so grateful for my health, my ability to see, my ability to stand, to walk, to whatever I can find that's I'm being grateful for. Because you repeat what you don't repair. Write that down. You will repeat what you do not repair. And so if we continuously speak of these things that we don't have, then we're going to continuously have what we don't want. Okay. We're speaking of things that we don't have, and we're not going to, the universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you're being. So these Wi-Fi signals that we're putting out from our energy of our bodies are then speaking not only to the people around us, but they're speaking to the genetic coding and the aspects of our DNA, and creating the cell structures within our body. These are magnetic fields, trillions and trillions and trillions of magnetic fields going out all the time. And let me give you guys a little, I don't know where everybody lives in the world, but when I was doing some of the research around the lifespan, it also, the CDC breaks it up by state, and the highest lifespan state for the US is Hawaii, by the way. And I mean, sure, of course, it's beautiful and tranquil. The lowest life expectancy from the US within that stats that I told you is Mississippi. So just understand that just because you live in Mississippi doesn't mean you're going to have a lower lifespan. But if you believe it's so, if you have a fearful based demeanor, then it's going to have a big influence. So you can live anywhere in the world, anywhere on the planet, and still have dominion over a genetic outcome. As I want you to really understand that your DNA does not determine this outcome. Environment has a bigger influence, An environment to the cell is the interior of your body. The interior of your body is the environment to the cell. So the energy that you're putting out in terms of thoughts and emotions have a bigger impact on your genetic code. Okay. And then what are we using to influence our internal state? Our senses, right? What we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we feel. So the exterior environment starts to become part of the interior environment, influencing genetic codes. Do you follow me so far? So just know that there is a very distinct pattern in which what we see, feel, touch, and taste, and then the consciousness or the belief structure around it and how we take it internally to mean to us. We assign the meaning to us, and then that essentially starts to propagate that genetic code. So what do we have as our tools? Well, of course, we have our healing. That's a biohack that's amazing and beautiful. But I'm going to tell you a little secret. I work with people on the physical all the time, performance athletes to couch potatoes that just want to lose a few pounds. And I watch them eat right. I watch them exercise properly. I watch them get enough rest, but I watch them also sabotage their results. What do you think is it that's doing that? It's their mind. It's the belief around what they deserve, their worthiness. And that's going to be the biggest demise, the biggest influence on their results, because that creates that internal energetic code, the vibrational magnetic code going to the DNA to build the body. And the body, again, is the end result to be prepared for the environment. The end result, the beginning of this creation is consciousness. Without consciousness, there's no observation into matter. This is Einstein. It requires an observer to create matter. And so the material body of us that we're operating in right now has a consciousness observing it into this three-dimensional space. And that consciousness is our mind, our beliefs, perceptions, behavior patterns, our internal dialogue. So Healy helps a ton with this, but this mind can still sabotage it. Just know that our part, our responsibility, our obligation to our health is how we think, believe, and feel. Don't forget that.
It's interesting that you mentioned self-worth, because what I've seen especially now that I have the coaching module to use in my practice, whether it's in my groups or my private clients one-on-one. The number one thing I start with now is self-worth. Somebody tells me they want to manifest a dream job. If somebody tells me they want to manifest a great relationship, somebody tells me whatever it is they want to create, I still start with self-worth. And I never run that module without including that category, because I would go as far as to say everyone on the planet has low self-worth, including Oprah Winfrey. Everybody has their stuff that they don't like about themselves, and they lead with that more often than not, whether they know it or not. Because if you've got low self-worth running in the background, and 90 to 98% of the time we are reacting based upon subconscious programs, are you coming from a position of strength, or are you coming from a position of fear?
100%. Neuroscience says there's 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. That's neuroscience. And 90% of those are the same thoughts as yesterday. 90%. So if we're taking yesterday's thoughts, having them in the present moment, how can we expect anything different tomorrow? How can we expect anything different tomorrow? I guess we really aren't. So the most important thing is to start biohacking. I like to start with awareness. When it comes to what I teach, the first thing I teach is this awareness. And Lori mentioned it, because if you're not aware of low self-worth or low self-esteem, if you're not aware of it, because it's just how you've been all your life, it just seems normally who I am, right? Remember that personality, that statement I made earlier, that's just who I am. Well, remember 14 generations back is a genetic imprint into you. And there was a study done by the Unity Church organization here in the world, of just the high officials within this organization. And they had them all write down their highest shadow emotion, shadow feeling. What was the biggest, most influential shadow within the leadership of this organization? And you know what it was? Worthiness. Worthiness was their shadow. And this was within a very spiritual organization. So this is human wide. It's not something that's just yours. So don't feel so bad if you don't feel it. It's not just you, but you can biohack it. You can adjust it. You can change it. And the important part is to know how. How do we do it? And the awareness muscle is the first one I always ask people to work out. Because if you were not aware of Healy, you wouldn't be here right now, right? Somewhere along the line, you obtained a higher level of awareness just about this beautiful secret that we have. We want to not have it a secret. It needs to be known worldwide, right? But to teach someone quantum physics or quantum entanglement isn't really necessary. But to teach someone that it is the way we think and the way we feel that's creating this disharmony, and there's a way to adjust that, right? That doesn't mean you have to go back to college. It doesn't mean you have to become a guru or a mystic. You simply just need to be able to understand how to run an app on your smart device and link up Bluetooth wise to this little guy. And we're good, right? So that's what we need to really be teaching. We're talking about epigenetics. We're talking about some deep stuff here, right? We're talking about lifespans, and we're talking about magnetic frequencies and things like that, which is valid content. But these are just knowing that there is a way in which you can not be feeling held hostage to a past, right? And your future is not determined by your DNA. I just want everybody to really sink into that for a moment and know that there is infinite possibilities within that genetic code, infinite, and 800,000 cells per second are being influenced and then tuned in to that infinity into one code, one cell at a time. So when you decide that I want to really hack who I am on the genetic code level, on the physical body level, when you decide that's what you want to do, then I'm going to ask you to do one thing. I'm going to ask you to surrender who you are. I know. Wait a minute. I've spent decades in school and thousands on education, and I have influence over my peers. And you want me to surrender who I am? Yes, I do. Because the moment we're able to surrender who we are, then we've just made a clean slate. And everything that our past has been influencing us by or with is gone, is no longer going to be our future. So when I talk to people about, hey, your past doesn't have to be your future, your genetic code isn't your destiny, this is how I do it. I have them at first forget who they are, and every day connect to something you do want to be. Every day, every morning. I start my morning out with a meditation. And my meditation might just be about expanding my heart, feeling something joyous, something I'm grateful for, something simple. I don't mean you're going to spend 2 hours in meditation. I'm just saying, get clear on what you do want to feel and let go of what you don't want to feel. When we get clear about that, all of a sudden we're starting to change that genetic programming. 800,000 cells per second are going to start supporting what you do want. And the more you support what you do want, the better the biology, the body itself starts to become stronger within that. So you don't have to, remember, 120 to 150 years old. All right. I'll bet you nobody here is even in triple digits yet. So let's get busy.
Absolutely. We have that ability. We have that ability. So I'm going to give you guys a little homework assignment. I want you to go out. And those of you who are in my coaching class already have probably heard this, but those of you who aren't, I want you to go out and I want you to find a picture of yourself when you were, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6, that cute, young, adorable age. And I want you to frame it. And I want you to put it somewhere you're going to see it every day. And then when you go down that rabbit hole, oh my God, I can't believe you just blah, 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 you stupid, blah, 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 blah. I want you to ask yourself one question. Would I ever talk to that sweet, innocent child like that? You know you wouldn't. Well, that sweet, innocent little child is your inner child, and it still resides inside of you. You know, I did it this weekend. I started beating myself up about a couple of things, and then I went, oh, wait, no. How could I reframe that? Now, Lori, you must be having a bad day. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe you're just feeling off. You're really not a stupid person. I mean, I really literally shifted the internal conversation I was having with myself because I was imagining myself being that sweet, innocent little child. And I want each one of you to do that. The more work you do on yourselves in the next few weeks, the better your holidays are going to be. I promise you that. I promise you that. And I also want you to remember, when you get to your family gatherings, not everybody's been doing the work you've been doing. So I'm going to ask all of you to open your hearts and find that compassionate spot of love and compassion that you're going to hold for each and every person who doesn't have a healing yet, who isn't doing this level of personal growth work. And by your awareness of that, and by your open-heartedness as you're running coherence, and you better darn well with the coil, at every family gathering, just every hour, just keep hitting that button. Coherence, coherence, coherence. Why not? You have a gift in your hand, use it. Send that, it goes out in a 6-foot radius. Send that out. Every single person you'll be talking to will be picking it up, even if they don't have a healing.
Absolutely. You know, I love what you said there, Lori, because that inner child, or that child that you were asking everyone to have a picture of, is still within you. It's still within us, right? That inner child that's there, it's the same. In fact, it's that inner child that's running this adult body. That subconscious programming was built during that inner child development. And so this worthiness, this self-esteem, this internal dialogue that we're now being haunted with is literally a survival mechanism from that inner child from that time way back when. And I love the idea of printing a picture so that you can see it on a regular basis. And know this, that same genetic code that the little child was building is still there. It's still right there. Now, every moment you continue to have this energetic feeling and emotion and thought process that sways it a little bit further away from that inner child, right? That beginning stage of where we were when we were less influenced by our cognitive mind. So just know that that's still there. You want it back? Okay. Like I said before, surrender yourself. Everything you know, everywhere you go, everything you do, everything you touch has an energetic imprinting, and it has influence on that genetic code. So 100 trillion cells sitting here, reproducing to the tune of what? 800,000 cells per second, influenced by those 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. So what are you going to do to start shifting some of this redundancy from yesterday's thoughts being placed on the present moment, propagating the same tomorrow? What is it we're going to do? And the only time in which we can do it is this present moment, right now. How are you thinking? How are you feeling? Even justified. I want you to understand, even though you're justified, maybe you just saw some news report, or you just got an email, or somebody just cut you off in traffic. Even though you're justified to have a lower vibration emotion, anger, fear, frustration, jealousy, whatever it is, even though you're justified, stop. Don't. Reorganize. Because no matter what, justified or not, 800,000 cells per second are going to be built under that new energetic influence. And it's going to build you to be the same as yesterday. So the only way that you can shift this is by you surrendering the way you normally think, the way you normally respond, and the way you normally act. We've got this beautiful device to help us, to guide us, to influence us. But if you don't really decide to let go of the past and move into a different future, it's not going to shift. So it's a very, very strong, remember I said 14 generations back? This is new science. I mean, once upon a time it was 3. There was an amazing experiment they did with mice. Gave them a sample of a cherry flavored water at the same time as they implemented a very a shock treatment. And then they bred mice and tried to see how far down the road this energetic influence would create a reluctance to the smell and the taste of cherries. And it went 3 generations, very strongly 3 generations. Well, that was a long time ago. Then science started to show, well, now we're showing that some of the genetic coding is actually 7 generations. Now with the energy field and quantum science, we're now seeing that the genetic traits are 14 generations back in the energy field. And everything is that magnetic wave I told you about. The ether we've heard about, the quantum field we've heard about, in which Healy interacts. This is where we're working. We're working now with energy, and everything is energy. The only thing that separates it is the frequency of it. From the skin cell to the table, the chair you're sitting on, only thing that separates one energy expression from another is its frequency. And the same when we're talking about a genetic outcome, the only thing that shifts it is the frequency in which the energy influence is being sent. And that's all of us doing it. So you don't have to move from Mississippi, anybody. I'm not saying you got to move, but take into your hands the power that's given. And this is divine power each one of us possess anyway. I'm not telling you got to become a guru or a mystic or go back to college and get another PhD. I'm just saying that use the talents that we already have. And of course, the Healy that we have to hack all that. We can just increase the signal. I like personally, this is just me, but I love partnering with people that amplify my signal. Right? I love that, like partnering with Lori. Oh my God. I mean, her and I've had the pleasure of spending some time in the 3D with Lori. And we've gone and we've talked and we've had time together. And we amplify each other. And that's the kind of people that we need to be around. So take a look at your environment. Take a look. There's going to be folks that are trying to take energy, folks that are trying to amplify energy. And of course, as Lori is a coach with others, make sure you're creating your own buffer zone, right? Know that you can do this by not taking on the outside energy. If you're in proximity with people and you feel it, we talked about this a little bit ago, you walk into a room and you feel the energy. Sometimes it pumps you up. Sometimes it drags you down. Okay. You have a choice of one of two things. Either use your own internal state to out amplify the influence or move away. Simple as that. Sometimes we got to cut the ties, but sometimes we have to be there anyway. And especially like you're going to go and spend some time with family. If there's negativity around that, then create those intentions, run your Healy. And I love the idea. I literally take 4 Healys everywhere I go. And I have a coil for every one of them. And if you can surround the room with coil driven coherence, oh yeah, that's a great signal, right? That's a big change in the environment.
Absolutely. And if by chance you have a mag Healy, run that on coherence. I'm not kidding you. I did it when I was in Orlando. Adriana loaned me one to show to a friend that I was staying with who was an MD, and I put it on the counter in between us when we were having hors d'oeuvres before dinner, and I put the coherence program on. She didn't know what I put on. She knew it was sitting there. She knew what the device was. And she said to me, oh, like 20 minutes in, we're just having a normal conversation. And all of a sudden, she looked at me and she had like tears in her eyes. And she said, oh my God, Laura, I've missed you so much. We haven't seen each other in so many years since I moved to Florida. And I just want you to know how dear you are to me and how much I love you. And if I've ever done anything, anytime, anywhere that ever hurt you or upset you, I am so sorry because I love you so much. You are the most magnificent person in the world. Not kidding.
And then didn't you run it at night for sleep?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Same.
Yes. Well, she said, okay, I want to see what this thing does. You put that sleep program on that they were talking about, that infinity sleep program, and you put it on the nightstand between us. And I want to see how it works. Well, we went to bed around midnight. We woke up at 7 because her phone rang. Both got up and went to pee. Went back to bed and slept until 9:45. When she shot up in bed and went, that thing is scary. I have never slept that long in my entire life. And I feel so refreshed. Well, I can't tell you the last time I slept 7 hours straight without waking up to pee. I mean, it just, as we get older, things shift. What can I say? But it just was absolutely amazing how poignant and powerful those infinity programs are. So I encourage you, if you have one, definitely do that. If you don't, do what Ken does, Bring all the Heelys you have, set them around the room. And let us not forget that even if you don't have a coil for each one, this is an AI device. So look at it and say, I want you to send these frequencies to everyone in this room. Put it on coherence, set it down, and intend that it's happening, because it is. It absolutely is.
And remember that we can understand that evidence of the device sending out information by the program page that we have that just simply says you don't even need to connect it. The bioenergetic defense, all of those programs, in there, you simply just turn the device on, put it in your pocket, right? Or you put it, clip it to your belt, something like that. Those were not designed to be connected with the leads. Those were originally designed, even before the coil, to just simply run with just the hardware itself and not be connected. So this is no different. And if you take a look at any one of our pages, by the way, with the new Healy program, the new Healy app, the little pictures of each one of the programs has a little IMF letters at the top right of the box. In the old pink dot, it is simply this little tri communications dots, which just means connectivity. What that means is IMF or IMF optimized, designed for use with the coil. Okay. So on the bioenergetic defense page, you'll see every single one of those are IMF optimized for use with the coil, but also not required to be connected to either the coil nor the leads. So any one of those programs that has that IMF optimized, or that little IMF emblem on the new Healy app, or the little tri-dots on the old one, you don't need to run those with the cables to get the frequencies being sent out of the transmitter of the Healy itself. So it's still going to propagate and don't get confused. I'm not saying that the coil is not efficient. The coil is useful. The coil takes the current and amplifies that signal even more. Okay. I'm just saying that when we understand quantum entanglement, and we have a relationship with our Healy, and we have a relationship with the people around us, and we're running coherence, it's propagating that signal, that magnetic energy. Remember, I just told you earlier, trillions and trillions of magnetic waves being influencing our body and our genetic codes. It is influencing our genetic codes. Okay. So definitely run it, even if you don't have a coil, or if you don't have more than one, like I do, run it anyway and keep repeating it. It has influence.
Absolutely. And I know I constantly bring it back to the coaching module, but I really want you guys to set an intention for how you want your holidays to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give you one that I wrote just as a starting point. My family holidays were the best ones we've ever had. Everyone was loving and kind to one another. Kindness and love permeated the air. The joy and harmony was palpable. I am filled with gratitude for this miraculous co-creation of love and joy. And I don't want you to hit analyze until you feel that blissed out state. Because once you feel that blissed out state, now you are giving the Healy an opportunity to go from this timeline to this timeline and find out what's in between that's preventing that. I'm telling you, the emotions are so important in that coaching module. And I just really, really, really don't hit analyze. I'm going to say it over and over again until you feel it in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll get a solid reading.
You know that the thought is in the mind, or the thought is to the brain as emotion is to the body, and the two send an electromagnetic signal. So when you rehearse what Lori is saying in your mind, that creates the synaptic connections and the energy through the brain through those neurotransmitters or through those synaptic connections. That creates the energy within the brain. Okay. So that's a whole nother signaling, but the emotion now creates the chemistry in the body. So you can feel this sensation. And these two, thought and emotion, enrich the experience. This is again, another stronger signaling of the electromagnetic waves that not only your DNA is experiencing the influence of, but also the people around you. Remember I said that you transmit this energy easily 10 feet outside the body. And so anyone within that proximity, if you reach your hands as far as you can from fingertip to fingertip, that's still only the height of your body. So if you're 5 foot, it's going twice that, even further out than you can possibly reach. So when you're running these programs, Julie's asking the questions, you run it several times a day or just consistently. You're not going to overdose by these magnetic signals going out into the world, right? When you run the coil or you run the Healy without even any connections at all, you will not overdose. You won't. It will simply send the signal out and your body will absorb it to the extent in which you are willing to surrender. I'm just going to go there again because the more that we're able to surrender our old self, the more likely that the new self can start taking hold. All right. Thank you all. We're at the end of our hour, Lori, already.
I know. Gosh, this time flies whenever we're together like this. Oh my goodness. We love you guys so much and we love doing these with you. And just so that we have save the date, December 12th is our next Monday Night Magic. So put that on your calendars and we will look forward to being with you then. And in the meantime, just know what powerful co-creators you are. And just know how powerful the power of intention is.
Wow.
And go out and make this the best holiday season you have ever had.
Thank you all for all the great intentions. Now, remember, if you want to save the chat, because Lori put that great intention in there and some other links, the 3 little dots at the bottom where you would normally type in your chat content next to the smiley face, click on that. That'll allow you to save the chat to your PC. If you're on a mobile device, sorry, won't work, but at least you could save the chat and you'd have this. You don't have to write it down.
Absolutely. And what everyone always asks is, if we know it's recorded, but where do we find it? You find it wherever you found the link to tonight. We post it all over the place. So, and if you're on the email list, certainly look for that as well.
Awesome, you guys. Thank you so much. I love you all. And we won't see each other before Thanksgiving. So have an amazing Thanksgiving holiday. But we'll see you again next month.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Love you.
Big love. Bye, everybody.